Okay, my friends, you just got to love innovation. Wow, that is great. I am impressed. Let me get her on, to hear about all of this. Are you with us now, Nicole?
Yes, I am.
Good.
Morning, Nicole.
I'm going to have to stop spending my nights awake, when I know that I've got a show to do or.
Well, you could do what I do. Go to sleep like between 8 and 9 o'clock, wake up at 1 or 2, go back to sleep at 5, and then get up.
Well, actually, that's what I've been doing. So anyways, thanks so much for the compliments there.
Oh, they're self-evident.
Well, I'll tell you, that was, the last 8 years of doing this type of research and this work to try and figure out how, we can move forward legally, under the legal aspect where the government can't even touch us, and then finding that key to where, now I finally understand what the government did, why it went about it, why the provinces put up with it. When you listen to that video, it puts everything into perspective, and it's like they're waiting till it's almost like they're waiting till we mature, till we're mature enough to figure it out, and as long as we don't figure it out, well, they're getting away with murder here, basically is what they're doing. So now we've figured it out, and to me, it's like, save your country in 8 minutes. Anybody who doesn't have the time to listen for 8 minutes, especially a Commonwealth country, we're basically all in the same boat where it comes to the Commonwealth of Nations, Australia, New Zealand, it's almost a carbon copy. So if they listen to this, pretty much, they are probably pretty much in the same boat we are, and they can use the same methods.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Gail. Why don't you step in? Because I know you're much more familiar with this than I am. I'm just very impressed hearing all about it right now.
Well, we've talked about it. Nicole's delved way deeper than I have in this, and she carries me along. But Nicole, what I found interesting when we were speaking the other night is using the analogy of a third. What did you call a third party?
Third party management.
Yeah, because I think people can relate a lot easier to that, because it is even though everything's packed into 8 minutes, it can be complicated if you're just kind of brand new into all of this. So, can you explain to people how that third party management relates to us? That analogy.
Yeah, like I couldn't figure out why are they always saying that our government itself, not parliament, but government itself, like we're into a de facto government, which is, when I explain it to people, I say it's illegal, but in effect. So they are actually there. It's not right. It's not, they're not, or I even say it's not kosher. So they're there, but why is it de facto? If it's illegal, if it's illegal or legal in effect. So basically, they're there, but they shouldn't be there. They're only as a third-party management until we wake up. Our parliament, our day-to-day parliamentarians, and that they call that as a de jure governance. So even though we have a de jure governance, we have a government that works day to day, but the one that rules over us is actually the, you heard, I explained it in the video, but they're actually the ones that are ruling us at the federal level. So we're basically under martial law. Anybody who understands martial law, it's the same thing as third-party management. If you look at the nations, if they're suspect that maybe a First Nation isn't handling the monies right or doing something, then they'll throw them in third-party management.
It's like bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's like bankruptcy. But, and this is why between 1919 and 1926, this is when there was that coup d'etat that happened with the imperial crown. So if you look back at the imperial crown, what happened is even the UK separated itself from the imperial crown at that time. And what they did is they said, okay, well, you're still going to be our monarchy, but that's all you do. And you're
okay, ladies, let's hold that for a minute so nobody misses a word of what you're saying, and we'll be right back after the break so everybody can learn more. Stay with us, people, because you guys have got to get out and share all this important information. We'll be right back. And we are back. I'm your anchor and producer, Dr. Robin Falkov. You're listening to Event Horizons. We come to you Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time, and you find us at our home, freedomslips.com. We're in Studio A. Okay, ladies, so this grand plan, has anything been attempted in the past to try to turn this around?
Well, I know that through our research, there were some MPs that were, like in 1931 when they came out with the Statutes of Westminster, which a lot of the other countries, the Commonwealth countries, also have, or things change for these countries at the same time. We all ended up with basically no constitution, and because we had, they were not the Balfour Report, but the Statute of Westminster came in. Everybody was kind of, okay, well, now you need to do your own constitution. But this one will stay in effect until you do. So really, we were stuck with the BNA Act, and then in 1982, Trudeau repatriated it, which means like in one section, they got rid of one section, the Queen signed off, and then she had to re-sign onto the new 1982 Canadian Constitution that still kept parts of the BNA Act. So any country that kept parts of the old Constitution, by default, we're still tied into that third-party management until we actually create a brand new Constitution.
And how monumental a task is that?
Well, the thing is, if you look at the United States, it took them 12 years to ratify their Constitution because one of the states was refusing to sign on. And finally, but with us, I used to think, well, okay, once we get rid of this and, draft a new Constitution, what happens now? Well, the reason why they are de facto is because they are waiting for us to create a brand new one. And because if you're looking at, I was wondering, why are the provinces not calling a referendum on this, or why do they really want to control the referendum question every time we go into, let's say, the Charlottetown Accord and all of these things, or even when Quebec wants to separate? Why is this so controlled? Why can't we just say, okay, let's build, create a new one? But when you're looking at Justin Trudeau, when he said his vows to the crown, and even the provinces, when they come in, they have to pledge allegiance to the crown and the Privy Council, and everything in the Privy Council is supposed to be kept secret, because the Privy Council, everything is secret. So even if they want to turn around and say, okay, well, you guys have the right to draft your own constitution, and then the governance will now be in your hands. We will need to listen to you instead. So the oath had a lot to do with this, and trying to piece this together. So when you're looking at this on the grand scheme of things, because of the Doctrine of Discovery from 1493, that basically makes it the papal bull that was created, the Inter Cetera bull, actually places all lands into the Vatican's hands. But mind you, at that time it was just the church. The Vatican only became the Vatican in 1939. So when you're looking at all this, okay, well, even if we want to change our governance, we also have to get rid of the 1493 papal bull, which, the Vatican has always refused to change. Because in North America, that would have huge, huge meaning. Because once the Inter Cetera bull is invalidated by the people now being the owners of our countries, that would automatically wipe out that inter cetera papal bull. So, and we need to, before we can become the shareholders of our countries and have our true constitutions, we don't really own the land itself. So that's why we have the taxation that we do for our houses and everything else. So basically, when you're paying your taxes, they're saying it's going, to support your, your city and everything like that. So when you're looking at fee simple ownership means you're under feudal title, feudal lands. So why are we in feudal lands? And even with the United States, with the when they had their wars and claim independence, well, the reason why, as soon as they finally had their constitution, they were already independent. However, this is when they launched the Supreme Court, because within the Supreme Court, when you look at our findings, what they call the Lord Spirituals always had to give the okay to kings and queens to do whatever they wanted to. And the title of king and queen was always given only by the church. And it's the church that picked who could be king and queen. So a lot of people think, oh, it's just the crown, it's just the imperial crown. No, the true crown, and when you're looking at the bar, well, why is the bar higher than our governments? Why does the bar, the Supreme Courts have the right to overrule any of our countries? Why are these judges allowed to have more power than the people and more power than the presidents or, the prime ministers? Well, where's it coming from? It's the one that holds title to the lands, which is the Vatican through that inter cetera papal bull. If you're looking at colonialism, it all reverts back to that 1493 bull.
Well, and in law, if you don't own land, then you really don't have any power within the law.
Exactly. We only, under fee simple ownership, we only own the interest in the land, not the land itself. So nobody has a allodial title. And this is where people have the misconception. I was listening to Chris Ann Hall, and she makes a really, really good speech about who has the power in the United States. And it's the same thing with us in our provinces. The provinces in Canada and the states in the United States hold the entire power. If you took the majority of the states, they could destroy, they could wipe out the federal government. They could fire Obama tomorrow. But the thing is, and this is why NATO is always the one ruling our military, even within the United States, because we're still under what they call feudal lands, even to this day, even when the United States claimed their independence. But they changed their governance, but not the landowners. And this is how the Vatican was able to, the church was able to claim all lands under God to rule, and then you have your kings and queens who do the temporal side of things, and they do the spiritual side, which is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court judges over your soul.
So how are you getting this out to the people so that they can join and stand with you and take action and petition those that you've put in office? I don't remember the terminology for all of those that we the people have elected in different countries, but how can they be introduced to a solution and made to understand that this is the will of the people?
Well, and this is, again, the misconception that people have, that when we vote for somebody, it doesn't mean that they listen to us. We just elect them to represent us within the state. But because of the way political parties work, they now represent what the political party represents. So whatever the political party is mandated by, that's what you're voting for. You're voting for an ideal. You're not voting for an MP to really represent you. And that's where people have that misconception. So in Canada, when we vote for Justin Trudeau or Stephen Harper, well, we're actually voting for their platform. and not for them specifically to be able to listen to us.
That's not the same here in the States. Here in the States, we want them held accountable because they make promises about supporting the demands made by we the people. And then, lo and behold, they don't deliver, just as we saw from the beginning with Barack Obama. Differences.
Yeah, it is a little different, Robin, but if you really check into it, between the two, you have a two-party system, and then you get to pick and choose between those one or the other type of mentality of the party itself, and that's where they get us, and that's where that fraud comes under.
Well, we finally have an opportunity for change here in the States with somebody not from the system, who's outside the system, who has had consistent positions, as we've seen in different YouTube videos going back 25 years ago. I'm talking about Donald Trump. And because he's not a politician, his insights and, going over to that third rail, which everyone thought was untouchable, have come to pass where so much has been discussed finally. Is there a chance for you guys to have a breakthrough person like that?
Well, the thing is, and from the research that we've done, I'll tell you something. Nobody makes it in government or can even represent, how can I say this? They know exactly. Whatever they show you, it's all part of the plan. We can't get away from it. They've been doing it. They've been doing this for, at least 100 years now. So anybody that wants to run for presidency normally will not make it if they're not already pre-chosen. The only reason why you'll have the 4 or the 5 last men standing, those are preordained. Those are the series of people that they're going to give to you and see which one you're going to lean towards. And I would put both hands in fire that all of them are pre-chosen.
Okay.
In Canada.
Yeah, we have that, and then there are some breakthroughs, and then, of course, there are people here in the States that won't vote for those people no matter what, because there's no difference between both parties. Right. They're both corrupt. They both have agendas that are not for we the people. So the only way to get anything done is with the individuals breaking out and taking a stand for making change. So, it's a possibility, and from what you're saying, it seems like that possibility is like pretty much slim to almost non-existent for Canada.
Well, if you look at what do you think happened to Kennedy, as soon as they stand up for the people, they are taken out. Kennedy was an example for all of the next ones to come. If you don't do what the shadow government tells you, you're out. And, it's like even here, Rocco Galati will say, they only need to jail 5 people to get 35 million to comply. So when you're looking at that, that's why, even though, let's say, one is honest and he's really trying, the best way we can protect them is through direct democracy. And by everybody enforcing direct democracy, this is what the Convention of Consent does. We've created one for the United States where people can amend the Constitution in the United States is already good, as opposed to where we have none, basically. Technically, we Canadians have no constitution, neither does Australia, New Zealand, and on all of these Commonwealth countries. But if you look at the United States, you already have a constitution, but it needs to be enforced. And the only way that you can do that is to demand a constitutional change to add direct participatory democracy. So when people are saying, "Oh, the founding fathers were wonderful and they created this masterpiece of a constitution," well, that they never would have gotten that if it wasn't for the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, and they did say in the I think it was in 1990s or 1986 where they acknowledged that it was because of them that constitution came about, but they left one important aspect. The founding fathers of the United States made sure that they still remained in control of the people so that they can bring about, still keep the Supreme Court, bring in the Supreme Court to make sure that the Vatican still ruled, and within all of this, you can see that if they really would have listened to what that Constitution was supposed to be like, it was direct democracy. The Haudenosaunee had direct democracy. It was the voice of the people at 100% consensus before they moved on anything. So it was the voice of the people. It was not a representative. So what they did with the United States Constitution is it was subverted by the Founding Fathers to stay in control of the people.
Okay, so Gail, what do you think? How do you see going about getting this concept mainstream so you can get a surge of the population pushing for it?
Well, I mean, education, of course, is the key, because we've all been, the history that we've been taught, there's been little bits of truth, but not the truth behind the truth. And so there's a huge misunderstanding of how the system works. And I think that the points that Nicole's been bringing up, about the Queen and the whole third-party management, I think people can, when that idea is brought forward or that fact is brought forward, you can start to see and understand it. And I think that's what we need to do, is start bringing it out to people to help them to understand it. The other thing that I really like about the Convention of Consent is that it's a legal document, because, so many are afraid of doing something illegal, because we all know, legal is not necessarily right, legal is not necessarily moral, and there's consequences that are very apparent when you do something, quote-unquote, illegal. So the idea of it being legal, I think, is going to be really helpful, and everything that's said in it just makes sense. It's how we think it is already, but it's not like that. Because if it was like that, then, your representatives, our representatives, would be listening to us. They wouldn't be ignoring us. We wouldn't be protesting. We wouldn't have to protest.
Right, and one thing that's really important that needs to be said is that Christiane Hall is right. All of the power, just like Canada, all of the power remains in each state. So if you had the majority of the communities, of the people signing the Convention of Consent, it would be an automatic, because that is a contract between people and their governance and how they're going to govern themselves. So, they can't penalize us for doing that. It is our right. Your Constitution gives you that right. With us, it says, okay, now Canadians, since 1982, Canadians can amend our Constitution. It didn't say that we were allowed to write a new one. We can amend this one, but until we grow up enough to realize that, we have to write a brand new one to get rid of the power of the Crown under martial law, which is what we are in North America. This is why the Queen in the United States ratifies the IRS. Why does the Queen under the representation of Britain why is she the only one allowed to ratify your IRS documents? The last time she ratified a document was in 1997. Nobody knows that. The United States people are under the false impression that they are free. They were never free, not since the inception of the independence. And this is where they have kept control of the nations and taxation for these lands. It's all relative to who really owns allodial title. Well, under 1493, why is the Supreme Court, both in Canada and the United States, and especially in the United States, still using the Doctrine of Discovery against the First Nations who, contest that?
Nicole,
so as long as it's alive, it's hard you can't contest it in court.
Just, Nicole, people may not be familiar with the Doctrine of Discovery. Can you just give a quick little synopsis of what it is?
The Doctrine of Discovery was a papal bull that's actually, that's what colonialism is all about. It's actually the church that launched colonialization. And they gave the kings and queens the right to go from in other nations who were not Catholics, to overtake these countries. And when they came across indigenous nations, they said, well, if they're not Catholic, they're not human. These are savages. So unless you can convert them to Catholicism, then you can. They have no rights to these lands. They're mere animals. But yet, when you look at the United States Constitution, the Haudenosaunee have the oldest living constitution on earth, and the United States governance, actually was I think it was Congress or the Senate, that acknowledged the part that the Haudenosaunee played in the United States Constitution. So the United States people the United States Constitution is encroaching upon the oldest living constitution on earth, which belongs to the Haudenosaunee. So these people were not savages. These people had true direct democracy.
Well, yes, we know that we got much of our structure, from, I'm trying to think which tribe, was it from the Mohegans? Which tribe in the Northeast?
It's not the Mohawks, it's the five, it's the Confederacy of Five Nations.
Okay, because I know there was one tribe in the Northeast that had their Senate structure set up. That was something that was used.
Yeah, most people refer to them as the Mohawks or the Iroquois.
Yes, it was, yes.
Yeah, so the Iroquois was five nations together, and then they added a sixth nation, which really has no voice. But if you're looking at your Constitution, and people should realize this, is the only thing missing from the Iroquois is the direct democracy part of your Constitution. That was deliberately left out. And for them, it's 100% consensus. I mean, it'd be hard right now for any of us to try to get 100% consensus and get something done. But at least, instead of 50 plus 1, we should at least have a 70% minimum consensus before anybody moves forward with anything. But all the power remains in the states. If you can get the majority of the citizens in one state to sign that document, they have to give you direct democracy, because it's a binding agreement between the citizens without the government having the right to dictate to you what you're allowed to sign or not sign in a binding agreement. And by the use of the word convention, that's what makes it legal at the international level.
Well, why don't you make sure you come back and give us updates on how this is moving along, seriously. And, I'd like to invite the audience, if they have any suggestions for how to get this moving forward. There's always stuff like Twitter storms and all that mass sharing of information, and I'm going to get back in touch with a very clearly expressing guest that I had who gave us the basics, but we didn't have enough time to expand upon Twitter storms. So we can all learn and support those things that are important. But we need to be reminded regularly. So will you do that for us?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for having us on, because that video, when you asked a while ago, what we have done so far to launch it, we've just finished that video a few days ago.
Okay, so everybody who's listening that has seen the link on Facebook or in the Event Horizons group or my other page or the announcements, they've been on Twitter and LinkedIn, they should tweet these messages and post them wherever they can, so others will become familiar, and it'll be something that's commonplace, and everybody will know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So once we sign this, we actually become the shareholders, which means we're turning our taxation into dividends. Now that money belongs to us. So, it makes it really makes a lot of common sense to do this.
Okay.
Well, and it's what people think we have already.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you have homeless people, and you have hungry people, and you have hungry children, and you have members of Parliament and Congress and the Senate that are not listening to you, obviously it's not exactly how we think it is.
No, and then it gives you the benefit of having your own public bank. Canada is the only one in the world right now that has a public bank where we can actually create our own money and do our own things for our infrastructure. So there's no reason for people to be homeless in Canada, or to be hungry, or to be on welfare for that matter. So who is benefiting but the corporations from our natural resources? It's time it all comes back to the people.
I agree.
And the United Nations right now under COP21 is trying to bring in more taxation to the people as another layer of governance above us. So we can stop all this through that Convention of Consent. We can end poverty and everything else under having our own private bank.
Okay, ladies. I thank you very much. It's been a whirlwind. Thanks to Gail Marie and Nicola Brusser. And we will be hearing a lot more about this. And you guys are going to be out there talking about it, aren't you?
Absolutely. This is like...
the audience will be out there talking. We will as well. We'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning with more of Event Horizons. Please get your questions ready. My dear friend and colleague, Christopher Husser, Dr. Vasteopathy, and Dennis as well, be here. And if you want to help,